What is up, it's the Figure Hunter, and tonight we've got an extensive comparison of the new Garmin Forerunner 255 compared to the new Garmin Forerunner 955, and we're specifically focusing on using these watches or looking at the feature set from a CrossFit and high-intensity interval training focus and perspective versus all the running, swimming, and biking videos that are out there. So if you like this review, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing for more. I've got a lot of other content. I'm going to do a re-review of the Whoop. Let me give you a special peek into it. It's not a positive one. And I'm going to, have a multiple of other devices to provide reviews for. So when we look at these devices, we're going to go through a few basic things what we talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the specs and the differences now, sort of face to face. And then in the hands-on section, we're also going to look at the heart rate overview of the heart rate performance. And then the hands-on section, we're just going to look at the feature sets. So the features that are reoccurring on both, the features that are new to the 255 and on both, or I should say this one's new to the 255 and on both. So we're going to look at what is sort of awesome about the release of the 255, but it's also highlighting the features and benefits that are now on both of these watches. And then we're going to look at the features and benefits that are only on the 955. And then we'll come back together and we're going to keep that same focus. We're not going to hyper-analyze features and benefits that aren't significantly important to CrossFit or high-intensity interval training versus just running or biking or triathlons or something like that. So we want to come back to this same thing. So we want to come back to that same focus. And then we're going to come back together and just talk about what's not significant about the differences between the 955 and the 255, specifically with those types of training programs, and what is significant. So if you're looking at the difference and you're looking maybe at the 255 music model, which has music at $400, or the 955 base model, which is $500, the $100 difference, what is the difference between these two that you might miss and lose out on? And then we'll come back together. So with that, let's dive into the specs. So I'm just going to talk sort of nerdy here for a second about what the spec literal differences are, because some of them are actually kind of significant, and it's significant in the line of Garmin watches that have come out. So the 955 is 46.5 millimeters wide, and the 255 is 45 points. So it's 3% smaller. They're about the same, but the significant difference in the casing is that the 955 has a little bit more of a raised heart rate, and it's thicker to begin with. So the 955 is 16 millimeters thick, and the 255 is only 14.5 millimeters thick. And it might just be the one middle section on the 955. It's got a little extra thickness, but that's a 10% thinner or 10% thicker device on the 955. And I will tell you, it feels more flush. It looks more flush on the wrist. And maybe I'll give you a little video of what it looks like on the wrist as well. So the main big difference, or the main spec thing that's similar to both, is the new 1.3-inch transflective memory and pixel screen. Now, it's the same type of technology, but it's gotten better. It's gotten bigger. So 1.3, all the previous generations is 1.2 inches in diameter for the little circle on the screen that actually is lit up. But what's significantly different is number one, that's 18% bigger. So there are millions. So the Sunto 9 Peak, the Coros, the Vertix, the Coros Vertix 2, the Coros Epix Pro, they're all in that 1.2 generation. Maybe the Vertix 2 has a little bit bigger, but most of the watches on the market today in the transflective memory and pixel and sports watch competitive environment is 1.2. And this 1.3 just means that it's 18% bigger. And if you suddenly your boss came in and said, let me give you an 18% raise, you'd be fired up, because that would feel significantly different, because it actually is. So within looking at battery life and specs, the battery life is 15 days on the 955 and 14 days on the 255, but it's actually 42 hours of GPS time on the 955 and 30 hours, so significant decline there if you're looking at just running an ultra marathon. And back to the screen, I have a light meter just to test the brightness, because to me, as I'm getting older and I need reading glasses, the brightness of a watch makes a big difference. Both of these are significantly brighter than any other watch Garmin's come out with, maybe save the Fenix 7. So the original 255 had a full tilt brightness of 25 lumens. The original Fenix 6 had a full tilt brightness of 65 lumens. The 255 has a full tilt brightness of 80 lumens. It is 320% brighter than the original 245. It is brighter than the 745, but I haven't measured it, or I don't remember what the measurement was. And it's 32% brighter than the Fenix 6 that was a hot item and is still actually functionally a decent watch. And even better than that, the 955 has 115 lumen max brightness. So it's even 31% brighter than the 255. And they're all brighter than everything else. The Coros Vertex 2 came in at like 19 or 20 lumens. So again, like 400% brighter on even the 255. The Epix Pro, super dim. The Pace 2, super dim. The max brightness of the Polar Grit X Pro and the Vantage V2 is like 27 lumens, 29 lumens, something like that. Much, much brighter. The max brightness of the Suunto 9 Barrow or the Suunto 9 Peak, I think capped out at 35 lumens. And these are 80 for the less expensive base model for the 255 and 115 lumens. So, and crisp, clear colorization, awesome screens there. So that's the spec difference. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at, now they both contain the Elevate 4.0 heart rate sensor. So before we go to the hands-on, we're going to look at a summary of just 3 specific workouts where I had the 955 just on the wrist, wearing it and using the optical heart rate sensor, and I had the 255 linked to a chest strap, and I can compare the data and summarize it into some pictures so that you can see sort of the differences. We're not going to run any high-level analysis because I've already done that on the Elevate 4.0, and you can see that in the description below. And as always, I put timestamps in the description below so you can jump to parts of the video that you might find interesting. But we're going to look at some pictures of that and then come back and then look at the hands-on. All right, so we're going to look, this actually says 955 versus 255, but really it's the 255 and 955 versus a chest strap. So these are lighter in build than the Fenix 7 and the Epix, so the expectation is they're going to have better results. So I'm going to speed through this as much as I can. This is the first workout, the lifting portion, and then the Metcon towards the end. It actually, the lifting portion has some minor glitches, but otherwise, this is going to actually spit out the training effect, the same training load, the same anaerobic and aerobic training effect, the same recovery time based on the cardiovascular strain that you see here. So these minor differences do not affect the output of the value in the analysis of the workout. So minor variances like that don't make a big difference from what the watch is actually giving you that's worthwhile. So this is actually sort of a perfect workout, or just this is really spot on. It's actually performing better than my testing of the Epix and the Fenix 7 as far as the accuracy goes, because these are lighter watches. This workout, is from front squats in the beginning. You can see that it held the higher heart rate for longer. The blue is the 955 and the red is the chest strap. So it didn't really, my heart rate didn't stay up that high. It did not maintain that height. So this was a little bit of an overage, and that the last one where it was totally off and the chest strap stayed down and the pulse jumped up. Frankly, I'm having a little bit of issues with my H10 chest strap. So this might have been a variance there, but I also was adding hand wraps because there was a lot of toes to bar and a lot of, wrist-based movements, a ton of single arm dumbbell snatches. So I was sort of the prep there, just the warm up for the Metcon. But surprisingly, the Metcon turned out excellently. I mean, that watch was bouncing all over the place, meaning I had to loosen the buckle so that I could slide it further up my forearm so that I could wear the hand wraps, and it didn't push the button to make the workout stop. And it was excellent. So this is really good results, because this one was like a jacked up workout with a lot of different wrist flex in it. And then this workout today, it was active recovery, but my heart rate did get raised and elevated. It was relatively spot on. This one, this little peak at the end was just a max rep of pull-ups. Trying to get a new peak there. But overall, these are great results. The one thing I will say in looking back at these 3 workouts, besides just that
these results supply all the physiological information or all the cardiovascular strain information that the watch is going to need to give you accurate output analysis. So no questions there, no problems there. This is appearing to be more accurate than my Epix and Phoenix 7 testing because the watches are lighter, and that weight is proving more valuable for those of us in alternative exercise methods versus running, swimming, and biking. But the one thing I would say is that wanting to wear wrist wraps was actually something I felt in the workouts, and I didn't do because of this watch testing and the wrist, wearing hand wraps. If you wear an external device, you can just throw your watch off to the side and you can go about your workout. So all this stuff looks perfect, but I would still suggest connecting to an external heart monitor so that you can make those adjustments as you want.
All right, so the heart rate's coming out pretty solid, not fantastic, but what I would say, these last two workouts was a lot of moving my watch around because I had to put on hand wraps because there was pull-ups and different things like that. And so especially the one workout, I was moving that thing all over. It was bouncing all over. So I wasn't surprised to see it get some not perfect scores in there, but at the same time, it's keeping up excellently, but you just want to pair it to a chest strap. You don't want to have to wear it on your wrist. You want to be able to do wrist wraps or hand wraps to be able to do all sorts of different movements. So just get some sort of heart rate monitor, like the Verity Sense or the OH1 Plus, or use a chest strap like the H9 or the HRM Pro from Garmin, whatever you want to do, and connect the heart rate there. So these are not going to be perfect, but they are significantly better. And because they are lighter, that's the one thing I wanted to say, because they are lighter, I'm getting a little bit more visual accuracy without fully running the test than I did on the Epix when I did the full testing there for the Elevate 4.0. Because of the excessive weight of both the Phoenix 7 series and the Epix, it causes more movements, which causes less accuracy. These are doing better than that. So with that, let's look at the hands-on of the new features in the 255, the new features to both the watches, and the new features to only the 955, and come back together and talk.
Okay, before we dive into the hands-on, I just want to see it. You can see it on my wrist. I think my wrist is 179 centimeters. So you can see like how it stands out and how it sort of looks overall, how much protrusion is there. And there you go. And let's look at okay, and now look at the 255. So you can see how it sits on my wrist to tell how it sits in a much more flush. This isn't quite the best angle or view because it doesn't look, you can't quite see it because this one's squishing into the thicker flesh, but this is how they look side by side. All right, so looking at these side by side, you can tell there's a lot of similarity. They look very similar. So it's got a thicker band on the 955. This is the 955. I'm going to probably get confused partway along. And you can see, like I mentioned in the specs, so they look the same size. But when you stack them on top of each other, it looks like the 955 is a little bit more of a behemoth. So 16 millimeters versus 14.5 millimeters, that looks actually like a significant difference, and you can see why it would stand up differently on an arm. So when you look at overall everything else, one thing is awesome about the 945, it is a 22 millimeter band. It is quick release, and you can switch this out for QuickFit. I did a review of that, how you do that in the description below. So you can see a slight difference. I don't know if you can tell, they're both maxed out on brightness. The colorization on the 955 is just a hair better, meaning just a slight washed out, like a million times better than every other memory and pixel watch on the market, but just a little bit clearer here. So we're going to put the 955 aside. So that's sort of like the visual differences now that we got the hands-on going. So now we're going to focus on the 255 and what's new to both. And we're just going to start with what's new to the 255. And then what's also on both. So the 255 now has an altimeter, so you can track your stair climbing, you can track more stats when it comes to running and biking, rather than just relying on the altimeter adjustments based on GPS. So 14 days and 15 days on the 955, that is a significant doubling of battery life length on the 255 over the original 245. The 1.3 inch screen is brighter, is bigger and brighter. And the other thing that you now have on the 255 is this little guy there, the triathlon, and then down below that, add the multi-sport. So those are significant differences that are going to make many, many people happy. One of the things that is on was on the original 945 and is on the 955, but now is on the 255, which is new to the 255 series, is the training status. So training status used to be a dumbed down version. This is called Garmin's Advanced Training Metrics. But not only is it more advanced than even it was on the previously 945, but it's way more advanced for the 255 because the 255 only had like two of the basic stats. And what that now includes is like a summary screen of your acute load, heart rate, those basic things. And you can see stats of that within it, but it used to only include like your recovery time, but you didn't see your load focus areas. So this specificity of load type, load exertion focus for the workouts you've done recently is new to the 955. And so that is a fantastic step. So it tells you what you're sort of lacking in general. The acute load is different, but they're both upgraded, 955 and 255, to this new little chart screen and picture representation. It used to look a little bit different, and again in the 245 it was sort of dumbed down. Now they're tying in heart rate variability status to your training status, which is cool, and see how they tweak that over time. And recovery time was always a part of that, but again, the training status, when you go into the app, and we're not going to look at it now, has gotten more significantly advanced on the 255, and they're both increasing their advancement with new features. So on both, on this watch as well is the Garmin Pay, which is a new addition to the 255, as well as the 255 didn't previously have your sleep widget, sleep score, which was on the 945. But anyway, so all these features are now on the 255, and what is now on both the 255 and the 955? Well, the first is going to be this heart rate variability tracking. So it takes your heart rate variability through the night, takes your average, you can see your highest, so you can see your flow throughout the night. When you look at other watches that track heart rate variability, the Chorus Vertex 2 doesn't count because it's a spot check only, and the Whoop, in my opinion, doesn't totally count because it's an average number only with an overweighting towards the last period of sleep. So that's great, that's neat, but now I can see my whole graph. I get all the information. I get my highest level, so I can check both my average and my highest level, and it's also going to flow into a 19-day average, which applies valuable information. The other thing that you unfortunately can't see here is the morning report. So let's take a quick video of what the morning report looks like. All right, so here's the morning report. If you have never seen one of the multiple reviews that are out there, it gives you the sleep. Now, I have disabled the training feature because I don't care to see what my run suggestion is today because I don't run. 88, oh man, I lost one of them. Heart rate variability status just, tells you your average. You can jump into it and see all the specifics there, and you can see those in the same widget as well. The weather, you can jump into it, see what it's going to be like there. So you can see on the 255, you don't get all the features that you get on the 955. Just that one primary feature of training readiness. Ready for it, yes. Training readiness, look, high. I got good sleep, I had good heart rate variability, I had good body battery rejuvenation. So sleep, heart rate variability, although this was a different number. Weather. And it's supposed to have told me on both of these watches what the body battery rejuvenation was, but for whatever reason, it did not. All right, so that's the morning report. And then last, I didn't add it to the screen because I'm not going on any races, but if you had a race, you could program it in your calendar, and it will tell you like how to taper your running schedule, how to prepare yourself, what needs to be a rest day, when you maybe should be your last hard push day before your race coming up. So race day and calendar is a new thing. And then what now is limited to the 955. So the 955 is going to have a few basic things that make it more advanced. It's $100 more or $200 more depending on the model you choose. So the first is the touch screen. Touch screen is sort of neat. I haven't gotten any used to it because I'm so used to buttons, but in the mapping it is blow away awesome. And that is the thing that's significantly different about the 955 over the 255 is you get the full mapping. So when you go into a workout and you go into see, oh great, it's not on that one. you can see where you are, and you can touch, and you can zoom in. You don't do that press, but you push this button and then you zoom in, you tap, but you can move all the way around. It's not yet started, so you get a full map. You can route to trailheads, you can route to a Starbucks. It will find nearby locations. It'll tell you where the next checkpoint on a race is. It is very advanced, so that is a very cool feature. The maps ties into skiing and golfing. You can actually plot your whole golf day and see how far away you are from the hole. So it's pretty significant there on the maps itself, and that's what makes the touchscreen useful, is like in that category. The other thing is in the sports profiles. So you get new sports profile or additional sports profiles. I'm not going to go through the full list. A lot of other videos have it, but bouldering, the mountain biking MTB sport profile includes special stats for mountain biking that's tracking in your grit and grind. But the thing that is a significant difference between the two, on the 955 you have stamina, and this is basically will track the impact of hard intervals on your ability to do the next interval. Like especially if you're a runner or you're a biker and you're doing hill sprints or you're doing something significant that is having a harder physiological impact on your overall stamina, like it's called, you'll be able to see like you don't have a whole bunch left in the tank. Like you can do 2 more and then you'll be down at 0. It's not as applicable if running is not your thing or long-term biking is not your thing, but I'm going to test that in longer details. And the last thing that is a significant difference in SAD tier is this training readiness is only on the 955. So it takes into account multiple different things. It actually is going to take into account multiple factors: your sleep quality, recovery time, your heart rate variability status, your QT load over the last week, sleep history, stress history. And let's take a quick look at an actual video of it so you can see what it looks like on the app to gauge its value. All right, so training readiness is just a stat field that comes up when you wake up, that's updated throughout the night. There it is in the middle, the top. This is only on the 955, and you can see it gets updated at 8 a.m. every morning, and it's going to include these main factors: your sleep score for the previous night, your recovery time from the previous rigorous workout, your heart rate variability status. So once that's populated with 19 days worth of data, but it does show you your last night's heart rate variability average, your acute load over the last 7 days, and whether that's low, medium, or high. Your sleep score history, which is interesting because it's basically looking at your last 7 days of sleep, which takes into account a much more valuable backdrop of information, and 7 days of stress. Like, have you just been under a lot of stress on the whole over the last 7 days? So it's basically looking at your recent last night, last workout stats, as well as your long-term 7-week stats when it comes to load, sleep, and stress, and giving you a recommendation for whether you could push your body that day and whether your body is physiologically ready for it. So those are the main differences. What's included on the 955, I might have left some sort of stat or some minor detail out, but otherwise they look and feel very similarly. So I sort of have them set up in the same way. You can see, again, I don't know if you can see, it's a little bit clear quality screen here, but otherwise it is the same. Especially if you get the music version, you're going to have all your music. They're both really awesome watches. So let's come back together and talk about what is significant about the differences and the offerings between these two.
Okay, so in summary, looking at all these things, I love both of these watches. I mean, there's a lot to look at, but there's both significant offerings. I really love the casing size of the 255 and the slender size and the little neon accent. I like that a lot. But what are the differences? Both the not significant differences, especially when doing CrossFit and high intensity interval training, or something other than running, biking, and swimming, and what are the significant differences? So what's not significant? And this applies to both. Garmin Pay, I don't know, it's not accepted in every country. Maybe not everybody uses it. Some people think it might be awesome, but I bet the number of users is a relatively small fraction. The race calendar, it's on both watches, but I don't think many of us, mostly in the CrossFit world, are going to be doing races where we're tapering off our run to be able to perfect our half marathon time. The multi-sport feature. Now, CrossFit does bleed into multi-sport type things like doing sprint triathlons and things like that. So the multi-sport, or you can create your own multi-sport that includes running and indoor rowing, and you can get multiple stats in your watch. So the multi-sport is not as big, and the altimeter addition on the 255 is not as significant because we're not looking for elevation changes as a main part of a stat that we're tracking or watching. It's just cool that it's now on the 255 because it wasn't on the 245. So the other thing that's not as significant that is big on the 955 is this real-time stamina. So if you're going out for a 3-hour marathon prep run and you're working in their intervals, it'll tell you like how much strain you have left. Now I might throw this when I do my full review, the stamina screen on the 955 when I'm doing a CrossFit workout to see how it bleeds down stamina in a 1-hour class or in a 30-minute Metcon, but I just am not guessing it's gonna really do that much. It's a big featured stat on the 955, but it's not that significant unless you are doing long runs or long cycles or long swimming. So it just doesn't have that much. Another thing that's not significant is the extra GPS time on the 955 or the 255. We're not gonna need 30 hours on the 255 to begin with. And then the brightness differences, so the fact that it's 115 lumens versus 80 lumens on the 255, it's still 3 times more than the original 245. It's still 30% more than the Phoenix 6, and so it's still better. So what is significantly different and is a major bummer if you only are looking at the 255 over the 955, and that is training readiness. Training readiness is going to get better. It's going to get evolved. It's going to get more specific and more scientific. And it is a really cool stat conceptually that's looking at like your 7-day period of stress at work and sleep quality and your load over time, coupling it with your last night, quality of sleep, heart rate variability stats, just the overall more ultra short term and your recovery time left from the last hard workout to give you a training readiness score. And so that is actually really significant. That is probably the significant item. And the other minor, but still maybe significant to some people, is the map inclusion. And then with that, the touchscreen. I really think touchscreen is only relevant or most important to maps, so it's not as significant unless you have the maps. And that's one thing that's cool about the 955 is that I think everybody, that has fitness related, maybe likes to go on a hike once in a while, maybe likes to go kayaking on a river, and you can see all that and you can build it in. You can repath your hike based on the map on the 955. And sure, we have phones, but sometimes we're further away from our phones. So that is actually cool. And the mapping features and some of the stat features ties into the mountain biking profile, which you can get grit and push or some stats for your mountain biking. You get specialty sport profiles. So some of those things tie in and they might be significant because some of those ancillary sports might be sort of the adventure sports that tie into maybe people that are in the CrossFit high intensity interval training community that maybe like to break out and do just different sort of rugged stuff. But either way, that's the summary as far as I could see it. I tried to break it down in relevant content for those that aren't just focused on long runs or training for a half marathon or triathlon or ultra long bike rides, and what would relate to fitness in a different realm and how these watches compare head to head. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. And Spec Your Hunter, thanks so much for watching.